The grand convocation chamber fell silent as Ambassador Chen Wei stepped to the central podium. Around her, arranged in concentric circles rising toward the domed ceiling, sat representatives from 217 species, the collected leadership of the Galactic Consensus. The air shimmered with translation fields, recycled atmosphere, and barely concealed tension. Chen allowed herself a small smile. After 3 years of bureaucratic stonewalling, delays, and dismissive patronization, humanity was about to change everything. High Chancellor Vornath, a towering Krell whose chitinous plates reflected the chamber's amber lighting, clicked his mandibles in what Chen had learned was their equivalent of an impatient sigh. Ambassador Chen, we have granted you this emergency session as requested. However, I must remind you that the consensus has pressing matters to address. The continuing border disputes between the Helios Compact and— With respect, Chancellor, Chen interrupted smoothly, what I'm about to share makes border disputes rather trivial. A ripple of surprise moved through the chamber. One did not interrupt the High Chancellor. The Krell's compound eyes fixed on her with what might have been irritation or interest. Chen still couldn't always tell. Proceed, Vornath said, after a long pause. Chen activated the holographic display. Above the podium, a slowly rotating image materialized. A spherical device roughly 2 meters in diameter, its surface covered in geometric patterns that seemed to shift and reorganize as it turned. 3 months ago, human scientists successfully tested a functional prototype of what we call a quantum fold engine, Chen announced. It allows instantaneous travel between any 2 points in the universe, regardless of distance. For exactly 3 seconds, silence reigned. Then the chamber erupted. "Impossible!" barked Ambassador Thexlor of the Vryn hegemony, his 6 eyes widening in his reptilian face. "The energy requirements alone would—" "Violates fundamental principles!" shouted another delegate. "This is a human fabrication!" Vornath's amplified voice cut through the chaos. "Order! Ambassador Chen, these are extraordinary claims. The laws of physics, as understood by the consensus, are quite clear. Faster-than-light travel requires exotic matter, tremendous energy, and even then, our jump gates can only create stable corridors between predetermined points. What you describe is theoretical at best." Chen nodded calmly. Theoretical, according to consensus science, Chancellor. Human scientists approached the problem differently. She expanded the hologram, showing complex equations that scrolled through the air. Several delegates leaned forward, their translators working overtime to convert the mathematical notations into forms their minds could process. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, Earth's leading quantum physicist, materialized beside Chen via hologram. The elderly woman adjusted her glasses and smiled pleasantly at the assembled aliens. "Good cycle to you all. I understand this seems impossible, so let me explain. The consensus has spent 50,000 years perfecting jump gate technology by brute forcing your way through space-time using massive energy expenditure. You treat the universe as something to be conquered through power. And humans do not?" The question came from Ambassador Celtrin of the Philosophical Aether Collective, her crystalline form chiming softly. "We do not," Tanaka confirmed. "We asked a different question. Not how do we tear through the universe, but how does the universe already move through itself? Quantum entanglement shows us that distance is, in some sense, an illusion. Particles separated by billions of light-years remain connected, affecting each other instantaneously. We simply scaled that up." "Madness," muttered the Vryn ambassador. Quantum effects don't work at macro scales. Every species knows this. Every species assumed this, Tanaka corrected gently. You all hit the same wall and decided it was the edge of possibility. Humans have a saying, assumption is the mother of all failures. We questioned the assumption. Chen watched the delegates carefully. She could see the disbelief, yes, but also something else in many faces. Fear. Good. They should be afraid, not of humanity, but of their own stagnation. Vornath leaned forward, his massive frame creaking. Dr. Tanaka, even if we entertain this hypothesis, the mathematical framework you've displayed, it incorporates elements that contradict the unified field theory that has governed consensus physics for millennia. Because your unified field theory is incomplete, Tanaka said bluntly. Functional for what you use it for, certainly, but incomplete. You've been building on the same foundation for so long that you forgot to check if the foundation itself had cracks. The chamber erupted again. Chen let it continue for a moment before raising her hand. We anticipated skepticism. That's why we're not just sharing theory, we're offering a demonstration. That got their attention. The human vessel Magellan is currently in high orbit around this station, Chen continued. It's equipped with a full-scale quantum fold engine. We propose a test. Name any location in known space, and we'll travel there and back instantly. Not via jump gates, not using your transit network. Direct point-to-point folding. Vornoff's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of deep agitation. This requires consultation. I call for a recess of 1 standard cycle. As the delegates filed out in clusters, already forming conversation groups, Chen caught Tanaka's eye. The physicist's hologram smiled knowingly. Think they're scared yet? Tanaka asked. Terrified, Chen confirmed. We just told the oldest, most established civilizations in the galaxy that their understanding of reality is wrong. Nothing scares the powerful like becoming obsolete. In the private chambers reserved for the Consensus Security Council, a very different conversation was taking place. High Chancellor Vornath stood at the center, surrounded by holographic projections of the most influential delegates. Defense Coordinator Krax, a heavily augmented mech form whose original biology had been replaced by military-grade machinery centuries ago, paced with metallic steps. If this is real, Krax stated flatly, the strategic implications are catastrophic. Our entire defense network relies on controlling jump gate access. Every border, every security checkpoint, every defensive position, all predicated on knowing where ships can and cannot go. If humans can appear anywhere, instantly. Every species can, corrected Ambassador Seltrin. They said they're sharing this technology. The entire balance of power collapses. Perhaps that's their intention, hissed Thexlor. The humans arrive, seemingly primitive, and within 5 years they unveil a technology that would make them the most powerful species in the galaxy? This is a military coup disguised as scientific advancement. Vornoth raised a clawed hand for silence. Ambassador Chen was clear. They're offering to share. That doesn't sound like a power grab. Or it's a trap, Thexlor insisted. We adopt their technology, become dependent on it, and then they reveal a fatal flaw. Or a back door they can control. You assign very human motivations to humans, Seltrin observed. Curious. The ethers would do well to remember that trustfulness is not a survival trait, Thexler snapped. Vornoth felt the weight of his position acutely. The consensus had maintained peace, fragile though it sometimes was, for 8,000 years. Peace built on predictability, on known quantities, on carefully balanced power dynamics. The humans had just thrown an antimatter bomb into that balance. "We need more information," he decided. "Cracks, I want full sensor arrays monitoring their demonstration. Every possible reading. If this is a trick, a hologram, a localized wormhole hidden as something else, anything, I want to know." "And if it's real?" Cracks asked. Vornoth's mandibles clicked softly. "Then we have a great deal of thinking to do." The Magellan hung against the stars like a declaration of human audacity. Unlike the sleek, elegant ships of most consensus species, vessels designed over millennia to be both functional and artistic, the human ship looked almost crude. A sphere at the center, surrounded by a ring structure, with various modules attached at seemingly random points. Captain Maria Santos stood on the bridge, watching the gathered observation vessels on her displays. 73 ships from different species, all bristling with sensors, all pointed at her vessel. "They're really going all out," observed her first officer, Commander Jackson Park. "I'm reading everything from basic optical tracking to quantum state analyzers." "Let them look," Santos said. "We've got nothing to hide. Status on the fold engine?" Chief Engineer Kowalski's voice crackled over the comm. "Green across the board, Captain. We can initiate whenever you're ready." "Destination?" asked Park. Santos smiled. "The consensus asked us to name anywhere in known space. Let's give them somewhere they'll find very interesting. Navigation, plot a fold to the Kepka sector, specifically to the coordinates of Monument Station." Park's eyes widened. "Captain, that's on the opposite side of the galaxy. And Monument Station is the consensus's most secure historical site. We'll be making a statement." "Exactly the point, Commander. We need to demonstrate both range and precision. Plus, Monument Station's security grid will provide independent verification of our arrival." Through the translation channel, Chen's voice came through. "Magellan, you're authorized for demonstration. All observation vessels have confirmed ready status. On your discretion, Captain." Santos took a breath. She'd been a military pilot, then a test pilot, then an astronaut. She'd seen humanity reach for the moon, then Mars, then the stars. But this was different. This was the moment humans stopped being the newcomers and became peers. Or perhaps something more. "All hands, prepare for quantum fold. Engineering, you're live." In the heart of the Magellan, the quantum fold engine hummed to life. Unlike conventional drives that required enormous power buildup, the fold engine's energy signature barely registered. That was what made it so elegant. It didn't fight the universe, it persuaded it. The geometric patterns on the engine's surface began to shift, reorganizing themselves in configurations that would have seemed random to an observer, but were actually precise quantum states. Each pattern was entangled with a corresponding pattern at the destination point, patterns that existed everywhere and nowhere simultaneously until observation collapsed them into reality. To the observation ships, the Magellan simply stopped being there. No flash of light, no space-time distortion, no exotic particle emissions. One moment, solid matter. The next, nothing. On Monument Station, halfway across the galaxy, alarms blared. Station Commander Felzik, a veteran Krell administrator, stared at his displays in disbelief. Impossible! The perimeter was clear 2 seconds ago. Run full diagnostics. Our sensors must be malfunctioning. "Sir, sensors are functioning perfectly," his tactical officer reported, voice tight with confusion. "That ship just appeared inside our defensive perimeter. No jump gate activation, no wormhole formation, no FTL wake. It simply wasn't there. And then it was." Felzik's mandibles locked in shock. He'd been briefed about the human demonstration, but reading a report and experiencing it were different things entirely. His station was protected by sensor grids that could detect a ship dropping out of FTL light hours away. The humans had materialized less than a kilometer from the station itself. His comm activated. "Monument Station. This is Captain Santos of the human vessel Magellan. We apologize for the dramatic entrance. We're transmitting our authentication codes now. As agreed, we'll maintain position for verification, then return to the convocation." Felzik found his voice. "Magellan, remain exactly where you are. We're conducting full scans." He switched to a private channel. "Get me High Chancellor Vornath immediately. And someone confirm we're really on the opposite side of the galaxy from the convocation. I feel like I'm going mad." Back at the convocation, chaos reigned. The observation vessels had confirmed it. The Magellan had simply vanished. Not moved, not jumped, but ceased to exist in that location. And now Monument Station, 87,000 light-years away, was confirming its appearance. In the convocation chamber, delegates shouted over each other, security protocols forgotten in the face of impossible reality. "This changes everything! We must have access to this technology. How do we know they didn't just have a ship waiting at Monument Station? This could be deception." Ambassador Chen stood calmly at the podium, waiting. Dr. Tanaka's hologram beside her looked almost amused. Vornath finally restored order, though his own composure seemed shaken. "Monument Station has conducted full molecular verification. The ship that appeared is identical to the one that departed, down to quantum signatures. Unless humans have mastered matter replication as well, this is genuine." "Chancellor," Chen said quietly, "the Magellan is preparing to return. 30 seconds." The chamber fell silent. Every delegate accessed their feeds, watching the data streaming in from Monument Station. They saw the Magellan's engines activate, saw the pattern shift, and saw the ship vanish. 0.3 seconds later, every observation vessel in orbit around the convocation confirmed the Magellan's reappearance in its exact previous position. Dr. Tanaka smiled. "As I said, we simply asked a different question." Vornath slowly sat back in his seat, a gesture that, for a Krell, indicated deep contemplation or shock. "Dr. Tanaka, Ambassador Chen, on behalf of the Galactic Consensus, I must ask, why? Why reveal this to us? Surely you understand the power this represents. You could have kept this technology secret, used it for military advantage, or leveraged it for political gain. Why share it freely?" Chen had prepared for this question. It was, in many ways, the most important one. "Because that's not who we are," she said simply. "Humans have a complicated history, Chancellor. We fought wars, committed atrocities, nearly destroyed ourselves more than once. But we've also learned something valuable from our mistakes. Hoarding power doesn't make you strong. It makes you isolated, paranoid, and ultimately weak." She gestured to the assembled delegates. "When we joined the consensus 5 years ago, we were the newest, least advanced species in the galaxy. You had technologies we could barely comprehend. And you know what happened? You shared them. You gave us access to your databases, your scientific knowledge, your accumulated wisdom of 50,000 years. You didn't have to. You could have kept us dependent, kept us inferior." Some argued for exactly that, Celtrin admitted, her crystalline form chiming softly. You were unknowns, potentially dangerous unknowns. And yet, you shared anyway, Chen continued, because the consensus, for all its flaws, understands something fundamental. Rising tides lift all boats. By sharing your knowledge, you didn't weaken yourselves. You strengthened the whole. Tanaka stepped forward in her holographic form. Humanity stood on the shoulders of giants, your giants. We took your unified field theory, your quantum mathematics, your understanding of space-time, and we built on it. We asked questions you'd stopped asking because you'd reached comfortable answers. But we only got there because you gave us the foundation. This technology is our contribution to the collective, Chen concluded. Not a weapon, not a bargaining chip. A gift, freely given, just as your knowledge was gifted to us. Because that's what civilization means, not competition, but cooperation. The silence that followed was profound. Finally, Ambassador Thexlor stood. The Vrin had been one of humanity's harshest critics, arguing repeatedly that humans were too aggressive, too unpredictable to be trusted with advanced technology. His scales rippled with color patterns that Chen's translator rendered as complex emotions. I have opposed human integration at every turn, Thexlor said slowly. I believed you too primitive, too warlike. I argued that your species' violent history made you dangerous. He paused, all 6 eyes fixed on Chen. I was wrong. Or perhaps I was judging you by what you were, not what you're becoming. Any species can build weapons. It takes wisdom to build bridges. He performed a gesture Chen recognized as a formal bow among his people. The Vrin hegemony will support full integration of human quantum fold technology into consensus infrastructure. One by one, other delegates stood, offering their own affirmations. Not all of them. Chen could see holdouts, skeptics, those whose fear outweighed their hope. But enough. More than enough. Vornath rose to his full, imposing height. Then let it be recorded, on this cycle, the Galactic Consensus enters a new era. Dr. Tanaka, Ambassador Chen, the Consensus formally requests full technological exchange and collaboration on quantum fold technology. We offer in return our complete cooperation and resources. Chen bowed. Accepted with gratitude. 3 months later, Dr. Yuki Tanaka stood in a laboratory that would have seemed impossible mere weeks ago. Around her, scientists from 17 different species worked in harmonious chaos, their different methodologies and perspectives combining in unexpected ways. A Vrin mathematician had just cracked a problem in the fold equations that had stumped Tanaka's team for months, approaching it from a geometric angle that human minds hadn't considered. An ether collective philosopher-physicist had contributed insights into quantum observer effects that opened entirely new avenues of research. Even the military-minded mech forms brought valuable engineering perspectives on stability and safety. Dr. Tanaka, called out Zixnar, a young Krell scientist with distinctly un-Krell-like enthusiasm, we've completed the simulation. If these calculations are correct, we can reduce the fold engine's physical size by 60% without losing functionality. Tanaka hurried over, her old bones protesting the pace, but her mind racing ahead. She studied the data, cross-referencing it with the base equations, and felt that familiar thrill of discovery. Zixnar, this is brilliant, this is. Wait, she zoomed in on one section of the simulation. This harmonic here, That's not in the original design. The young Krell's mandibles clicked excitedly. No, Doctor. I was reviewing the Aether Collective's philosophical texts on the nature of interconnected consciousness, and I wondered if we could apply similar principles to the quantum entanglement matrix. The harmonic is a result of treating the entangled particles not as discrete pairs, but as a unified field of possibility. Tanaka stared at the equations, then at Zixnar, then back at the equations. You just merged human physics, aether philosophy, and your own mathematical insights into something none of us would have found alone. Is it correct? Zixnar asked, suddenly uncertain. I don't know yet, Tanaka admitted, but it's beautiful. And in my experience, truly beautiful mathematics tends to be true. She called out to the rest of the lab. Everyone, we have a new theoretical framework to test. This is going to be a long night. A chorus of acknowledgments came back in a dozen different languages, all enthusiastic. Tanaka smiled. This collective pushing toward the unknown was what science was supposed to be. Her communicator chimed. Ambassador Chen's face appeared. Dr. Tanaka, sorry to interrupt, but I thought you'd want to know. The first consensus-built quantum fold engine just passed its initial tests. They're calling it the Unity Drive. Unity Drive, Tanaka repeated. I like it. Better than our clinical naming. The Vrin suggested it, Chen said with a smile. The Xlor specifically. He said it represents what the technology really is, a way to bring the galaxy closer together. Tanaka glanced around her laboratory, at the species that had been strangers, or even adversaries mere months ago, now working as colleagues and friends. He's right, you know. We build an engine, but what it's really doing is building something much more important. What's that? Trust, Tanaka said simply. For 50,000 years, the consensus maintained peace through balance, everyone equally powerful, equally limited. But that's not trust, that's mutually assured stalemate. What we're building now, together, requires actual faith in each other. Chen nodded slowly. Do you think it will work? Long term, I mean. There are still holdouts, species refusing to participate, accusations that we're destabilizing the established order. Of course there are, Tanaka said. Change is terrifying, especially for those comfortable with how things are. But here's what I know. You can't stop curiosity. You can't legislate against wonder. Every species that's holding back, refusing to participate, they have young scientists, young thinkers, who see what we're doing and want to be part of it. The future belongs to them, not to the fearful. Behind her, an alarm chimed. That's my cue, Tanaka said. We have experiments to run. Tell the Chancellor that the next generation of Unity drives will be ready for production in approximately 6 months. I will. Keep changing the impossible, Doctor. As the call ended, Tanaka turned back to her team. All right, everyone, let's prove the impossible wrong one more time. High Chancellor Vornoth stood in his private observation chamber, watching the stars. In the 3 months since the human demonstration, the galaxy had changed in ways both subtle and profound. 17 species had already integrated Unity drives into their fleets. Another 33 were in various stages of implementation. The economic implications alone were staggering. Shipping that once took weeks now took seconds. Communication that relied on relay networks could now be instantaneous across any distance. But it was the cultural shift that fascinated Vornoth most. For millennia, the consensus had been exactly what its name implied, a consensus built on compromise and the lowest common denominator of agreement. Progress came slowly because it required convincing hundreds of species to move in lockstep. The humans had shattered that model simply by offering an alternative. Contribute what you can, take what you need, trust that others will do the same. It shouldn't work.
Every political model, every game theory simulation, every historical precedent said it shouldn't work. And yet, it did.
"You look contemplative, Ambassador Seltrin," said, her crystalline form appearing in the doorway. "May I join you?" "Please." Vornath gestured to the viewing platform. "I was just reflecting on what the humans have done to us."
To us or for us?
Both, perhaps. Vornath clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. "The consensus has existed for 8,000 years, Seltrin. We've been successful by almost any measure. Peace, prosperity, advancement. And yet we'd become comfortable," Seltrin finished. "Stagnant, even. The humans arrived and asked questions we'd forgotten to ask."
"Why do you think that is?" Vornath asked. "Why could they see what we couldn't?"
Seltrin hummed, her form resonating with harmonic frequencies. "The Aether Collective has a teaching. The most dangerous place to stand is on the peak of a mountain, because you forget there are higher peaks beyond. The consensus reached a peak, a high one admittedly, and decided it was the summit. Humans were still climbing, still struggling, so they kept looking up." "There's another factor," Vornath added. "Humans are young. Their civilization is barely 10,000 years old. Their spacefaring capability less than a century. They don't carry the weight of 50 millennia of established doctrine."
"You think our age makes us inflexible?"
"I think success can make us cautious. We found methods that worked, and we stopped experimenting with methods that might work better." Vornath turned from the stars to face his colleague. "Do you know what scares me most about the Unity Drive?"
"Tell me."
"It's not the technology itself. It's the realization that if humans could revolutionize our understanding of physics in 5 years, what else have we been wrong about? What other impossible things have we declared impossible simply because we failed to achieve them?" Seltrin's chiming intensified. A sound Vornath had learned indicated amusement. "And this scares you?" "Terrifies me," Vornath admitted. "I'm the High Chancellor of a civilization that prides itself on knowledge and wisdom. The humans just proved we're neither as knowledgeable nor as wise as we believed." "Or," Seltrin suggested gently, "they proved that wisdom includes knowing what you don't know. The humans didn't make us ignorant, Vornath. They gave us the opportunity to be students again." Vornath considered this. In the distance, he could see a human vessel entering orbit, one of dozens that now moved freely through consensus space. Ships that had once been viewed with suspicion were now welcomed, their crews sought out for their fresh perspectives. "Ambassador Chen said something during her presentation," Vornath recalled. "She said, 'Rising tides lift all boats.' I've been thinking about that phrase. It implies that success isn't zero-sum, that one species advancing doesn't mean others fall behind." "It's a radical idea," Seltrin observed. "Most of our political philosophy is based on balance. If one rises, others must descend to maintain equilibrium." "But the humans don't think that way. They believe in asymmetric growth, in positive sum outcomes." Vornath's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of decision forming. "Seltrin, I'm going to propose something radical to the Consensus Council. I want to create an organization dedicated specifically to questioning our established knowledge. A think tank composed of the youngest, most unconventional minds from every species, tasked with challenging our assumptions." "The conservatives will oppose it." "Let them. The humans taught us that being comfortable is the enemy of being better." Vornath straightened to his full height. "For 8,000 years, the consensus has been stable. Perhaps it's time we tried being dynamic instead."
6 months after the demonstration, the first consensus-wide conference on applied quantum mechanics convened on Earth, a symbolic choice that hadn't gone unnoticed.
Dr. Tanaka stood before an audience of thousands, with billions more watching across the galaxy, and felt the weight of the moment. She was old now, older than she'd ever expected to live, and this would likely be her last major presentation. She intended to make it count. "My friends," she began, "when I was a young physicist, I was taught that science was about discovering truth. As I aged, I learned that science is about discovering better questions. And in my elder years, I've learned the most important lesson. Science is about deciding which impossibilities to challenge." The holographic display behind her shifted, showing the evolution of human understanding. From flat Earth to heliocentric solar system, from Newtonian mechanics to quantum theory, from isolated planet to galactic community. Every one of these leaps required someone to look at the impossible and ask, but what if? The quantum fold technology, the unity drive, didn't emerge because humans are smarter than other species. It emerged because we were naive enough to question what everyone knew to be true. She smiled, gesturing to the audience where dozens of species sat in integrated groups. But here's the beautiful secret. That naivety, that willingness to question, it's not uniquely human. It's not even uniquely young. It's a choice. Every single being in this room, regardless of age or species, can choose to look at established fact and ask, but what if? A new image appeared, the prototype unity drive that had started everything. This device represents a fundamental shift in how we understand reality. But more than that, it represents a fundamental shift in how we approach the unknown. For 50,000 years, consensus science progressed through accumulation, adding new discoveries to existing frameworks. What humans brought wasn't better science, it was permission to tear down the frameworks when they stopped serving us. Zixnar, now recognized as a leading expert on unity drive mathematics, stood. Dr. Tanaka, some critics argued that this approach is dangerous, that destabilizing established knowledge creates chaos. "They're right," Tanaka said bluntly. "It is dangerous. Questioning fundamental assumptions is always dangerous because you might find out you're wrong, and being wrong is uncomfortable. But you know what's more dangerous? Being wrong and never finding out because you were too afraid to ask questions." She advanced the presentation to show new projects, developments that had emerged from the collaborative research. In 6 months, we've made breakthroughs in energy generation, medical technology, materials science, and fields we didn't even have names for 6 months ago. Not because humans shared one technology, but because we collectively remembered how to be curious. Ambassador Thexlor stood, his scales displaying patterns of respect. "Dr. Tanaka, I would like to share something with the assembly. 3 months ago, a young Vrin scientist named Kethix proposed a modification to our terraforming technology. It was based on principles that contradicted our established ecological models. Principles she developed by asking, what if we're wrong about planetary biology? I am pleased to announce that initial tests show her method could reduce terraforming time by 70%. He paused, scales shimmering. I share this not to boast, but to illustrate Dr. Tanaka's point. Kethix is barely into her adult years. 6 months ago, her radical ideas would have been dismissed by senior scientists, myself included. But the humans taught us to listen to radical ideas. That cultural shift is worth more than any single technology. A ripple of agreement moved through the assembly. Tanaka nodded her thanks to Thexlor, touched by how far the once skeptical ambassador had come. The unity drive is impressive, Tanaka concluded, but it's not the real revolution. The real revolution is the one happening in rooms like this,
in laboratories across the galaxy, in the minds of every scientist and thinker who's decided that impossible is just a dare in disguise. She took a breath, feeling her age, but also feeling hope. I'm an old woman. I won't live to see where this journey takes us. But I know this. The galaxy we leave for the next generation will be one where the impossible is just the not yet achieved. And that makes all the difference. The applause that followed transcended species boundaries. Clicks, chimes, roars, and more. A cacophony of approval that brought tears to Tanaka's eyes. High Chancellor Vornoth hosted a private dinner that evening for the key figures in the Unity Drive project. It was an unusual gathering, high-ranking politicians sharing a table with scientists, military officers, and even some civilian theorists whose ideas had proven instrumental. Ambassador Chen found herself seated between Vornath and Commander Krax, the mech-form defense coordinator who had initially been among the most suspicious of human intentions. "I owe you an apology, Ambassador," Krax stated without preamble, his mechanical voice somehow conveying genuine emotion. "I treated your species as a threat. I ran simulations on how to counter Unity Drive technology, how to defend against it militarily." "And?" Chen asked, genuinely curious. "And I realized the flaw in my thinking. You can't defend against a technology everyone has access to. The entire paradigm of military strategy I'd operated under for 3 centuries became obsolete overnight. Krax's optical sensors focused on her. I was prepared to hate you for that. Instead, I find myself grateful." "That's quite a shift," Chen observed. "I spent centuries preparing for wars that will now never happen," Krax explained. "Because you can't establish defensive perimeters when anyone can appear anywhere. But that means you also can't launch surprise attacks, can't amass forces in secret, can't establish strategic choke points. Unity drives don't just make war difficult, they make traditional warfare essentially impossible." Chen hadn't considered that angle. So we accidentally created peace through mutual vulnerability? "Accidental or not, I'll take it," Krax said. "Do you know what I've been doing for the last month? Redesigning our defense strategy around disaster response instead of military engagement. If anyone can reach anywhere instantly, we can respond to natural disasters, medical emergencies, humanitarian crises with unprecedented speed. I'm becoming a relief coordinator instead of a warrior." "Is that a problem?" Chen asked carefully. The mech form actually laughed, a sound like grinding gears that nonetheless conveyed genuine mirth. "It's the best problem I've ever had." At the head of the table, Vornath stood, raising a glass containing a liquid compatible with his biology. "A toast," he announced, "to the humans who taught an old galaxy new tricks." "With respect, Chancellor," Dr. Tanaka interjected, "I propose a different toast. To curiosity, to courage, and to the collaborative spirit that makes the impossible merely difficult." "Better," Vornath agreed, adjusting his toast. "To our shared future." As the gathering echoed the sentiment in a dozen languages, Chen caught Tanaka's eye. The old physicist smiled, and in that smile, Chen saw satisfaction. Not the satisfaction of victory, but of purpose fulfilled. Later, as the gathering dispersed, Chen found herself alone with Vornoth on a balcony overlooking Earth's night side. The lights of cities scrawled below, a testament to humanity's rapid development. "Can I ask you something honestly, Chancellor?" Chen said. "Please." "Did we scare you? really, truly frighten you when we revealed the Unity drive? Vornoth was quiet for a long moment. Yes, he finally admitted. Not because of what the technology could do, but because of what it meant. I've been High Chancellor for 60 years, Ambassador. I've guided the consensus through crises, negotiations, challenges of every kind. I prided myself on wisdom earned through experience. He turned to face her. And then your species, barely aware of the galaxy's existence, casually revolutionized our understanding of physics. It was humbling, terrifying in its implications. If we were wrong about something so fundamental, what else were we wrong about?
And now? Chen asked.
Now, I think that fear was the best thing that could have happened to us, Vornath said. Fear of stagnation, fear of irrelevance, fear of becoming so set in our ways that we stopped growing. Your species gave us a gift, Ambassador, not the Unity drive, but the reminder that we're all still learning. He gestured to the stars above. The galaxy is ancient and vast. We could study it for 1,000,000 years and still find mysteries. But somewhere along the way, the consensus started treating the unknown as something to be cataloged and filed away. You reminded us to treat it as something to be excited about. Chen smiled. You know what the funny thing is? We almost didn't reveal the Unity drive. There was a faction on Earth that wanted to keep it secret, use it for leverage. We had intense debates about whether the galaxy would accept it or fear it. What changed the debate? Dr. Tanaka, actually. She argued that humans had made our greatest achievements when we collaborated, shared knowledge, built on each other's discoveries. She said that hoarding the Unity drive would make us powerful but alone, while sharing it would make us connected. And connection, she said, was worth more than power.
Vornath clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. Dr. Tanaka is wise. I hope she knows how profoundly she's impacted the galaxy.
I think she does, Chen said, remembering the physicist's satisfied smile. And I think that's enough for her.
1 year after the demonstration, the Galactic consensus underwent a fundamental reorganization. The old model of rigid consensus building gave way to a more dynamic federation of collaborative networks. Species could opt into research partnerships, share resources voluntarily, and pursue parallel paths of development without requiring unanimous approval. It was messy. It was chaotic. It was unprecedented. It was working. The Unity drive was now standard technology, with new applications emerging weekly. Medical ships reached patients in crisis seconds after the call for help. Scientific vessels explored distant regions previously too far for practical study. Cultural exchanges that once required years of planning now happened spontaneously. But more than the technology, it was the mindset that had truly spread. Throughout the consensus, young scientists questioned established theories, while senior researchers learned to celebrate being proven wrong. Collaborative research groups formed across species boundaries, bringing together perspectives that alone might never have achieved breakthroughs, but together routinely did the impossible. Dr. Yuki Tanaka passed away peacefully in her sleep on a quiet spring morning, surrounded by colleagues and friends from a dozen worlds. Her last words, recorded by those present, became something of a motto for the new generation. Stay curious, question everything, and remember, impossible just means no one's figured it out yet. Her funeral was attended by thousands in person and billions via hologram. High Chancellor Vornath delivered a eulogy that concluded, "She taught us that intelligence without curiosity is merely computation, and knowledge without wonder is merely data." Dr. Tanaka reminded us to be more than intelligent, to be alive to possibility. In the months that followed, The Tanaka Institute was established on Earth as a collaborative research center dedicated to pursuing impossible ideas. Its charter, written by consensus of species representatives, included a phrase that would have made the old physicist smile.
We exist to prove ourselves wrong, in the hope that being wrong leads us to something right.
5 years after the demonstration, Ambassador Chen stood once again in the Grand Convocation Chamber. But this time, she wasn't alone at the podium. Beside her stood representatives of a collaborative project that included 17 species. "Honored delegates," she began. "5 years ago, humanity revealed the unity drive. Today, we present the next impossible thing." The holographic display activated, showing a structure of breathtaking complexity, a lattice of quantum entanglement that stretched across an entire star system. Dr. Zixnar, the Krell physicist whose career had been launched by the Unity Drive project, stepped forward. "We call it the Consensus Network, a quantum computing matrix that spans multiple star systems, processing information at speeds and scales previously unimaginable." "The applications are diverse," added Kethix, the young Vryn whose terraforming breakthrough had inspired her own research path. "Climate modeling, medical simulations, social dynamics prediction, all operating in real time across planetary scales." Commander Krax, now officially titled Disaster Response Coordinator, contributed. "In disaster scenarios, the network can coordinate relief efforts across multiple worlds simultaneously, optimizing resource distribution and response times with precision impossible through conventional methods." Ambassador Seltrin chimed in her melodious voice. "But perhaps most significantly, the Consensus Network allows for unprecedented cultural exchange. Real-time translation, context-aware communication, even emotional tone mapping across species boundaries. We can truly understand each other for the first time." Chen smiled at her colleagues, each representing species that 5 years ago might have competed rather than collaborated. This project took 5 years and required insights from 17 different scientific traditions. No single species could have achieved it alone, and that's the point. She turned to address the full assembly. 5 years ago, humans shared the unity drive. But we didn't change the galaxy. We just opened a door. You changed the galaxy by choosing to walk through it together. High Chancellor Vornoth stood, and Chen was struck by how much older he looked. The weight of guiding a civilization through revolutionary change had taken its toll. "Ambassador Chen, on behalf of the consensus, I accept this gift with profound gratitude, but I must confess something to this assembly." He paused, gathering himself. "When humans first revealed the unity drive, I was terrified. Terrified of the unknown, terrified of change, terrified of discovering that my understanding of the universe was incomplete." His voice strengthened. "I have since learned that terror was my ego, afraid of being proven wrong. Once I released that fear, I discovered something wonderful. Being wrong is the first step to being more right. The humans didn't diminish us by revealing our incomplete knowledge. They invited us to grow beyond it." He turned to Chen. "You said we changed the galaxy by walking through the door you opened. I disagree. We changed the galaxy by building new doors together. And I suspect we're only beginning to discover what rooms they lead to." The chamber erupted in approval. Not the polite acknowledgement of political necessity, but genuine celebration of shared achievement. 10 years after the demonstration, humanity was no longer the newest member of the Galactic Consensus. 3 younger species had joined, each bringing their own perspectives and questions to the ongoing conversation about reality. Chen, now retired from formal ambassadorial duties, worked as a consultant to the Integration Committee, helping new species navigate their entry into galactic civilization. It was deeply satisfying work. She stood in the Tanaka Institute's Memorial Garden, looking at the statue of the old physicist, captured in bronze mid-laugh, her eyes bright with curiosity that transcended the limitations of metal. "She'd be proud, you know," a voice said behind her. Chen turned to find Captain Santos, now Admiral Santos, commander of the Consensus Exploration Fleet. "I like to think so." "The fourth Unity Drive generation just launched," Santos reported. 50% smaller than the original, twice as efficient, and incorporating design principles from 9 different species. Dr. Tanaka created something that keeps evolving beyond her. "That's the best legacy," Chen observed. "Not a monument that stays static, but an idea that grows." Santos nodded. "I'm taking a fleet beyond the rim next month. 12 ships, 20 species, all volunteers. We're going to explore regions no one's ever reached. Unity drives make it possible, but the consensus network makes it practical. We'll stay connected to home no matter how far we travel."
"Scared?" Chen asked.
"Terrified," Santos admitted with a grin. "But Dr. Tanaka taught us that being scared just means you're doing something worth doing." As the Admiral departed, Chen sat on a bench beneath synthesized cherry blossoms, Earth flora modified to bloom year-round, a gift from Aether Collective botanists who'd been fascinated by human aesthetic preferences. She thought about the journey, from humanity's tentative first steps into galactic politics to their current position as full peers in a thriving, dynamic civilization. Not through conquest or dominance, but through sharing, questioning, and the radical belief that everyone rising together was better than anyone rising alone. Her communicator chimed. It was Vornath, now retired but still influential. "Ambassador Chen, I hope I'm not interrupting." "Never, Chancellor. What can I do for you?" "I'm writing a historical account of the Unity Drive revelation and its aftermath," Vornath explained. "I wanted to ask, when you stood at that podium 10 years ago, did you know how completely it would change everything?" Chen considered the question carefully. "Honestly, no. We knew the technology was revolutionary, but we couldn't have predicted the cultural transformation. We thought we were sharing a drive system. We didn't realize we were sharing a permission slip." "A permission slip?" "Permission to be wrong. Permission to question. Permission to imagine that the impossible might just be difficult." Chen smiled. Dr. Tanaka understood it better than any of us. She knew the Unity Drive was just the excuse. The real change would come from everyone deciding to be curious again. "She was remarkable," Vornath said quietly. "I wish I could thank her properly." "Then make sure your historical account tells the truth," Chen suggested. "That humanity didn't save the galaxy or enlighten anyone. We just asked some questions at the right time, and everyone chose to explore the answers together. That's the truth worth preserving." "I will. Thank you, Ambassador." As the connection closed, Chen looked back at Tanaka's statue. The setting sun caught the bronze at just the right angle, making the metal seem to glow from within. "We did okay, didn't we?" Chen said softly to the statue. "Not perfect, but okay." The statue didn't answer, but Chen imagined she could hear that sharp laugh, could see those bright eyes twinkling with mischief and wonder. Somewhere in the galaxy, a young scientist from a species humanity had never met was looking at an established law of physics and thinking, but what if? Somewhere else, a team of mixed species researchers was celebrating a breakthrough that none of them could have achieved alone.
And across 1,000 worlds, beings from hundreds of species were learning, questioning, discovering, and growing, not in spite of their differences, but because of them.
The impossible had become merely difficult.
And difficult was just another word for interesting.